Okay, I understand we're live. The planning board meeting of June 1st, 2022. I'd like to introduce who's here. It's Sarah Palermo. She's the gatekeeper for the Zoom part of the meeting. And Maren, the building inspector. Doug Hahn, our consultant engineer. Mary Ann Message, our village attorney. Mike Bafuco, sitting in for Lori Davidowitz, and that's business tonight. He is a appointed alternate, so it's fine. Dan McGillicott, I'm Caesar Mann, the chairman. Mike Smith, and Kevin Tucker. Sarah, the minutes all okay for May 4th?
Yes, we're ready for approval.
Do we have a motion? Does anybody have any comments on the board about the minutes of May 4th? No. We have a motion to approve. Motion to approve. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? No. Taxes are all done?
Yes.
Okay, the order for this evening is number 1, 2325 Dearman Close. Number 2, 53 Field Terrace. Number 3, 9 Strawberry Lane. Number 4, 14 Barney Park. Number 5, 45 Station Road. Number 6, 21 South Continent Street. Number 7, 555 Broadway, which is Mercy College. Number 8 is 7 Irving Place. Number 9 is 1 Langdon Avenue. And number 10 is Field Terrace, new house. Okay, we have the number 1, which is 2022-17, 23 and 25 Dearman Close. Good evening, David. We could see you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
I'm having difficulty hearing the chair and the board. I don't know if anyone else is, but I'm having the audio coming in very faintly, but I will proceed nonetheless.
All right, David, how's that? David, did you hear me?
I can hear you, but faintly, but let me proceed so we're good to go. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. David Steinmetz from the law firm of Zarin and Steinmetz. Here once again with regard to Raj and Panita Nakum, as the chair indicated, 23 and 25 Dearman Close. We were before your board last month with regard to this application. I won't go backwards too far, just to simply set the table and remind the board that our clients own 2 adjacent lots on Dearman Close. There is an existing home, and this application really relates to some improvements and modification of the existing house and associated driveway area. It is my understanding that we received a comment memo from Hahn Engineering earlier today. We did, as a team, briefly review it. We really have not had a great deal of time to go through it, but we did not see anything, Mr. Chairman and members of the board, that appeared troubling. They all appeared to be issues that can be fairly easily addressed. I am joined this evening, as you can see, by my colleague Casey Brenner, by our project architect Tomas Lipinski, and by our client Raj Nakum. We're happy, Mr. Chairman, to answer any questions. I believe you or some of the board members were going to go out and take a look at the property and better understand the grade and the topography. We have made some minor modifications. I'm happy to turn the mic over. It looks like Mitch has just joined, to either Mitch or Tomas to explain any updates and modifications that have been made. But we're ready to proceed, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. And we actually think we're at a point where hopefully this evening the public hearing on this matter can be closed and we can proceed toward our amended site plan approval.
If you can bring up the the elevation from what you see from the street, and then just briefly, then we can work from there.
I guess this is a good time for me to weigh in if I can. I'd like to share my screen. And let me
Doing that.
Hi, my name is Mitch Koch. I'm the architect of record for this project. Tomasz and I have been working on this project for the Nakums. And essentially what we have tried to do in the latest submittal was to highlight the addition in the elevation sheet, which perhaps last time didn't go out. So I'm going to, hopefully everybody can see the image on my screen that I'm sharing.
Yes.
So the view from the street is the upper image, the south elevation. And you can see, I'm going to zoom it a little bit for you. The addition has been highlighted in sort of an orange color, and you can see the grade change illustrated here from the property line and up to the garage. And essentially, the goal is to maintain the quality and character of the house and to make it look like it fits properly on the street. And perhaps another view, which you might see obliquely from the turnaround, is the east elevation shown here. That you can see sort of the angled face of the garage, the entry area, and this lucky guy up there on the roof of the garage walking around in the grass. And I don't want to go on any longer than necessary. I wanted to show that this dashed line here is approximate existing grade, and you can see the relationship of our new driveway and garage to the existing grade that will be excavating and coming down underneath it and removing a bunch of material. But I think you know that. So if there are any questions, that would probably move this along nicely. So
Yeah. Last time I had a question about how deep was the rock and how difficult is it going to be to put the garage at the grade that is proposed?
Yes, I'm sorry. We did meet on site with Mike Stein. And in fact, he seemed to be pretty sanguine about it, saying that, yeah, you just remove the rock and it shouldn't be a problem. The notion is that a good part of what we're removing is rock, to answer your question specifically. But all of the work that's going on up there is been involved with rock excavation.
Okay, so so the intent is to dig out the rock until you get to the grade that is demonstrated on the plan that we're looking at.
That's correct.
Now, be aware that if it's any higher, the building inspector would have a great deal of difficulty with anything that's higher than what's shown.
We are completely aware of it, yes, and we're ready to do this.
Okay, thank you. Some outstanding, which I understand were taken care of. There was our landscape architect had a question about a 24-inch tree, which has been, according to her, it's been taken care of. Thank you for that. And
Great.
the coverage has been solved, Ed? And
Yeah.
Doug? Okay. Anybody on the board have a question? Mike Babuco?
No questions.
And I have no questions. I have no further. Mike?
No questions.
No. Sarah, anybody from the public?
Nobody's raising their hand to speak, and there are no comments in the chat.
Okay. Mary Ann, do we have a resolution?
Whereas in May 2022, Rajesh and Punita Nakum applied for site development plan approval to construct additions and other improvements, including an underground garage to an existing single-family residence at 23 Dearman Close, for which the entrance driveway is situated on the adjoining lot, 25 Dearman Close. And whereas the applicants intend to merge 23 Dearman Close and 25 Dearman Close upon receiving site development plan approval for the proposed improvements. And whereas Han Engineering reviewed the plans and in a memorandum dated May 3rd, 2022, identified a number of issues, most of which were addressed in a subsequent submission. Suzanne Nolan, the village's landscape consultant, reviewed the proposal and made 2 recommendations which were addressed to her satisfaction. The planning board held a public hearing on the application on May 4th and June 1st, 2022. In response to the planning board's request at the May 4th hearing, the applicants investigated the feasibility of constructing the improvements given the rock on the property and found that the proposed construction was viable. And was the action is a type 2 action under SEQA and therefore requires no environmental review. Now therefore be it resolved that the planning board grants the application for site development plan approval for the improvements reflected in the drawings entitled Additions and Alterations to Nakum Residence prepared by Mishra Koch Architects. And then the sheets are designated. And proposed dwelling 23 Dearman Close prepared by Hudson Engineering and Consulting. And the landscape plan entitled Nakum Residence as revised, subject to 1, providing proof from the town of Greenberg that lots 23 and 25 were merged, and 2, complying with items in Han's May 31st, 22 memorandum. Could I ask David, could you hear me?
David?
Yes, I did hear you, Mary Ann.
Can't hear, okay.
Can you hear me?
Barely. I'm having audio problems on my end. The board is faint. Casey and I are texting. It sounds like she's getting you guys faint also, but I heard you sufficiently. And just to reiterate what we had told you at the outset, we had held off on the lot merger until securing site plan approval because we obviously did not need to merge these lots if the application didn't proceed. So we fully understand we need to address that in Mary Ann's condition. And if I heard correctly, we obviously have an obligation to satisfy all of the issues raised in the Han memo, and we will take care of that.
That was it, yeah.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you for the presentation and looking forward to see what it looks like. Looks like it's going to be a fairly nice presentation.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
We appreciate you processing this as efficiently as you did, and we'll see you later on this evening. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Don't leave. And Dave, don't leave. We didn't vote yet. Okay, do we have a motion? We have a motion to approve the resolution as. Motion to approve said resolution. We have a second? Second. Mike? Approved. Dan? Approved. Caesar approves. Mike? I approve. And Jeff approved. Okay, moving along. Number 2. Oh, no wonder I couldn't see it.
Thank you. I will relay to David the vote.
He was in a rush to go to the last item that we have coming up.
Thank you.
Number 2 is 2022-16. That's 53 Field Terrace.
There is somebody raising their hand, but they're not accepting me promoting them to panelists.
You think it's for this?
Is it James Kraft?
For everyone else that's listening, we're having difficulty with the applicant tuning in.
You're on mute.
Hello, good evening. Raul and I are the residents at 53 Field Terrace. James Krapp is our architect. He's currently traveling. He'd sent a delegate on his behalf. I'm not sure if David is trying to join. If David can't join properly to speak, then Raul and I can represent ourselves. David, it looks like he's trying to join as well. So I'm not sure if you're able to pivot over to him to do the speaking.
I'm trying to let him in as a panelist, and one of his accounts has.
Hold on. Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes,
Hello?
thank you. Okay, so Raul and I will pivot to David, and if there's anything we can help supplement, just let us know.
Yes, hi. Good. Can you guys hear me all right?
Yes, the first thing is to identify yourself.
Yes, I'm sorry. My name is David Gelati. I work with James, the architect.
James
James
who?
Krapp, C-K-R-A-P-P.
Okay, go ahead.
Can I pull up the drawings so we can go over them together?
Yes,
All right, let me just, where's my sharing ability? Sorry, I'm just trying to figure out how to share. I see chat. Hold on. Oh, I see what's happening. Okay, hold on one second. I'm sorry, I'm on my phone and on the computer, and it's only letting me do it on my phone. So can I try to come into the conversation from the computer?
yeah. My experience is you can't do both at the same time.
Yeah, I've just learned that just now. Unfortunately, it's that's what's happening. So just bear with me. I'm gonna come back on, all right?
Maybe we should skip to the next one.
Well, if it doesn't come on, we'll do that. Number 11.
Hello?
Yes, hello.
Yeah, hi. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Great. So let me share my screen now. I apologize for the delay. Okay, can you guys see my screen?
Yeah, just blow it up a little bit.
Okay. So this is the site plan. Okay, and basically what I'm showing is the existing house in context with the property. We have an existing in-ground pool with a surrounding patio. The existing surrounding patio, we plan on making some reductions of the existing coverage because we do recognize that we are over by the coverage on the lot. But by making these reductions in the path and some of the reductions around the pool, we're hoping to gain some of this coverage so we can introduce our deck, which is, if I go to this drawing,
Oh,
yes.
to be clear, you're pointing to the blue section as being removed.
Yes, the blue section is what's being removed. In fact, give me 1 second. I'll take this to. So this would be the proposed, and this would be the existing. So if you can see, let me see if I can get rid of this and make it bigger. Okay, so the blue section is what's existing and what's we're proposing to remove. And the orange is what we're proposing to put in. So there's an existing rear yard deck that's currently there, and we're just adding onto that deck here. We're removing a bay window that's here. We're removing some of the pats and some of the area around the patio, and recapturing and not trying to exceed what's there. Unfortunately, this was prior to doing any of this work, this was already there. So we're removing that and we're just adding some stepping stones and basically a raised patio deck that we're adding onto the existing patio deck that's here. If I was to show you the elevation.
That's okay. And there was coverage to be fixed,
Coverage is now accurate.
and pool fence protection.
Full fence is existing and also covering maintenance code.
Okay. So you need a variance to coverage that has to go to the ZBA. And we have any comment from the board, Mike?
No comment.
Dan?
I have no comment, thank you.
Mike?
No questions.
The other Mike? Kevin?
No, thank
Sarah, anything from the public?
There's one reason they're going to speak, and there are no comments in the chat.
Mary Ann, do we have a resolution?
Yeah, whereas in April 2022, Raul Marquez applied for site development plan approval to reconstruct a deck, patio and walks around a pool, as well as to legalize undocumented coverage at his house at 53 Field Terrace. And whereas the proposed construction exceeds permitted coverage, therefore requiring a variance from the zoning board of appeals. And whereas Han Engineering reviewed the plans and in a memorandum dated May 3rd, identified a number of issues which were addressed in a subsequent submission. And whereas the planning board held a public hearing on the application on May 4th and June 1st, 2022. And whereas the actions of type 2 action under secret and therefore requires no environmental review. Now therefore be it resolved that the planning board grants the application for site development plan approval for the improvements reflected in the drawings entitled 53F Marquez Fair Deck prepared by Studio Park, subject to receiving a coverage variance from the ZBA.
Okay, any questions on the board about the resolution?
No.
We have a motion to approve. Motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, let's vote. Mike? Approve.
Approve.
Approved.
Caesar approved. The other Mike?
Approve. Kevin, approve.
We're all set. Okay, thank you very much. Good luck with the new patio. Thank you very much for appearing, and see you another time, maybe.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Number 3. Yes. thank you. Number 3, 2022-09, which would be 9 Strawberry Lane.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes. By the way, we meant
Excellent.
to ask the other. Can you hear us? Can you hear me?
I can hear you guys fine.
Okay. Then it was the other people. All right.
So
ahead, Doug.
Douglas McClure for Aaron and Michael Blanton at 9 Strawberry Lane. When we came to you 2 months ago, there was a lot of questions about our drainage plan, which originally had planned to bring the water off and into a storm drain on Strawberry Lane, which led to a lot of questions about Strawberry Lane's ownership. And after subsequent conversations with people, we went back to the drawing board and did some more percolation calculations and came up with a new drainage plan to try and put everything on the property and avoid the complications of Strawberry Lane's ownership, which is the plan we submitted to you for this meeting. I can pull up the drawings if you feel we need them.
Just briefly, Doug, so we can see it. Check out the site plan.
Yep. Let's see, I think it'd be best to go to the here. Here we have the building. And then our addition, as we discussed before, is here. Nothing about that has changed, but what has changed is this drainage system. We're taking all the water from the runoff from the house and bringing it into these drainage containers, working in a more traditional sense that we're all used to. They're very shallow, but the percolation of the soil is appropriate for it. And I know that Michael Stein's office, Hudson Engineering, has spoken to Han Engineering, and everyone seems to be okay with that. So we addressed those issues. There are some more issues on Doug's memo to us. They're all relatively minor, and I believe we can address those with Doug offline. I think the biggest one is, there's drain inlet details which need to be revised. That's easy. There's the HVAC pad still labeled as the generator on the engineering plans, which is a very easy change. And then we can look at the footing drain discharge. We discussed this afternoon, maybe draining that to open space. So I think the engineers and I can coordinate all that offline.
Okay, thanks, Doug. Ed and the other Doug, Don?
Sorry?
You guys are okay with coverage and variance, and
Yeah.
the coverage in the FAR?
Yeah, we checked it all.
They need a variance,
Setback.
Just a step back.
but not for coverage.
No.
Okay. Sarah, anything from the public?
And there are no comments in the chat.
Marianne, do you have a resolution?
Whereas in April 2022, Aaron and Michael Blanton applied for site development plan approval to remove a one-story kitchen addition and replace it with a larger one-story kitchen addition, and to remove a shed on their property at 9 Strawberry Lane, and with the proposed construction encroaches into the front yard setback, therefore requiring a variance from the zoning board of appeals. And Han Engineering reviewed the plans, and in a memorandum dated April 5th, 2022, identified a number of issues, most of which were addressed in the subsequent submission. Planning board held a public hearing on the application on April 6th and June 1st. Type 2 action under sequence, therefore requires no environmental review. Now therefore be it resolved that the planning board grants the application for site development plan approval for the improvements reflected in the drawings entitled Blanton Residence, prepared by McPhee Architecture, and the drawings entitled Proposed Addition 9 Strawberry Lane, prepared by Hudson Engineering and Consulting, and the structural permit plans prepared by Real Design, subject to 1, receiving a front yard setback variance from the ZBA, and 2, complying with items in Han's May 31st, 2022 memorandum.
All right, board, any questions on the resolution?
No question.
No question. No question. We have a vote. Michael, go.
Approved.
Dan,
Approved.
Caesar approved. Mike Smith,
Approved.
Kevin. Okay, thank you very much. I guess necessity is the mother of invention. You fixed the stormwater problem. Thank you very much.
Yes, well, thank you. Have a great evening, all.
Thank you.
All right, number 4 is 2022-03. It's 14 Barney Park.
Hello, this is John Malone, Malone Architecture.
Yeah, John, before you start, there's a lot of engineering that's going to be dealt with offline. So
Okay.
if you can just give us a brief outline of the situation that there was damage to the stream bank and you're trying to repair it. Just give us a little brief.
Right. So briefly, just to describe what had happened, there was damage due to a hurricane in September of last year. A tree fell, broke a retaining wall. That retaining wall led to an eddy, which pulled out a piece of driveway on the applicant's property, and that soil that was pulled out actually changed the stream bed and took out some bank side on an adjacent property, which is another project that's in front of the board, which I think we're going to hear next. So the goal is to put back the stream bed to where it was and replace the walls that were destroyed with gabion basket walls in approximately the same location. I think there is some discussion about there's some engineering again that needs to be addressed in terms of matching topography and exact wall heights. But again, the goal is simply to replace or return the condition back to the pre-damaged condition on the lot.
You understand there's going to be wetlands, floodplain, watercourse permits.
So on the Krasinski project, which is the one that we're hearing right now, those permits or the applications for those permits have been submitted, and we have not, I believe they've been submitted from the engineer. I believe we don't have any comments on our HAN memo related to those. On the other project, when we get to that, there was a comment. They say they're under review at the moment, the submissions for all three: wetlands, floodplain, and watercourse.
You just show a picture of what you might be doing, not necessarily what you will be doing, because just presently what you have proposed, so that the rest of the board can see it and the public can see it.
So
you can show a cross section of the gabions.
Right. Okay. So this is the two retaining wall sections that are being proposed in two areas, right? So it's basically a gabion basket system, which is a galvanized metal cage with rocks of a certain size, aggregate of a certain size. And depending on their location, they're either a 1 width thick assembly or a 2 width thick assembly. So there's two on this project. There's 2 being proposed, I believe. The first section section 3 here is through this section of the stream. And section 2, which is the larger unit or the deeper unit, not really larger, is in this section. So the area that is the restored driveway is this hatch pattern here. So that's, and you can see in the existing topo, this line here, that's the area of the driveway that was, when the existing retaining wall that was along this line broke, that was where the stream bed got in and eroded this section, basically took this section off and dumped it downstream in this area, adjusting the center line of the stream to the south.
Okay, we're going to move ahead. Is going to be subject to engineering approval by Doug Hahn, our consultant, and we're going to move ahead with a resolution on this project. Again, it's all engineering and doesn't need further review by the planning board. We got enough information so far. Sarah, you have anybody from the public?
Nobody's raising their hand to speak, and there are no comments in the chat.
Do we have any questions from the planning board? Mike?
No questions.
Yeah?
No questions. Thank you.
Mike, yeah.
No questions.
Kevin?
No.
Mary Ann, we have a resolution?
Whereas in February 2022, David and Janet Kazamiansky applied for site development plan approval, of freshwater wetlands permit, of water bodies and water courses permit, and a floodplain development permit in order to replace a retaining wall damaged by a fallen large tree during storms in 2021 and to stabilize the Barney Brook stream brink on their property at 14 Barney Park. And whereas Han Engineering reviewed the plans and in memoranda dated February 1st and May 27th listed a number of engineering issues. And whereas the planning board held a public hearing on the application on February 2nd and June 1st and determined that the issues that remain to be resolved are engineering issues which should be resolved with the village's consulting engineer. And whereas the planning board recognizes that the stream bank stabilization work needs to be done as urgently as possible. And whereas the action is a type 2 action under the State Environmental Quality Review Act and therefore requires no environmental review. Now therefore be it resolved that the planning board grants the site development plan approval and grants freshwater wetlands, water bodies and water courses and floodplain development permits for the project and the drawings entitled Kurzmanski Residence prepared by Integral Engineering Services, subject to revised drawings and final approval by Han Engineering.
Thank you, Mary Ann. Any comments on the resolution from the board? No comment. We have a vote, Mike?
Approved to accept the resolution.
No, that's a good idea. We have a motion to approve the resolution?
Motion to approve resolution. Second.
There's the vote. Mike?
Approved. Approved.
Approved.
I approve.
Approved. Okay, we're all done. We're all done with number 4. Thanks a lot, John. Number 5 is 2020-19 45 Station Road.
So John Malone again, representing the Valences family. Again, this is the same event. In this case, the damage was on the south side of the stream bed. You can see the change in the stream bed and the line of how the stream bed is going to, where the stream bed would like to be returned. These are the proposed retaining wall. The section in this location, because of the steepness of the bank, is 2 layers of gabion baskets with some flat soil areas in between. We have, again, some engineering comments about addressing some engineering issues about what's happening in between and how the restoration of the existing level spreader is going to happen, and we can pick up all those items offline if you like. But it's a very similar project, or related to the same event, and I think the comments are similar, except in this case we're waiting for some review of the wetlands, water course, and floodplain applications.
Okay. So you're aware of those permits and working on.
Yeah, they've been submitted for, and I think we're just waiting for Hans' review on those.
And you understand this will be subject to approval, not review, but actual approval by Doug Hahn, the village consultant engineer.
Right.
Hey, Sarah, do you have any comment from the public?
Nobody's raising their hand to speak, and there are no comments in the chat.
Thank you, Sarah. Mary Ann, do you have a resolution?
In February, whereas in February 2022, Jason and Ann Valences applied for site development plan approval of freshwater wetlands permit, a water bodies and watercourses permit, a floodplain development permit in order to remedy significant slope failure at the rear of their property at 45 Station Road, where a large tree was undermined during late 2021 storms and fell into Barney Brook, causing further erosion. And was Hahn Engineering reviewed the plans and in a memorandum dated February 1st, May 27th, listed a number of engineering issues, and whereas the planning board held a public hearing on the application on February 2nd and June 1st, 2022, and determined that the issues that remain to be resolved are engineering issues which should be resolved with the village's consulting engineer, and whereas the planning board recognizes that the stream bank stabilization work needs to be done as urgently as possible, whereas the action type 2 action under secret and therefore requires no environmental review. Now therefore be it resolved that the planning board grants the site development plan approval and grants freshwater wetlands, water bodies and water courses and floodplain development permits for the project and the drawings entitled Valences Resident prepared by Integral Engineering Services, subject to revised drawings and final approval by Hahn Engineering.
Thank you. Do we have any questions on the resolution? No questions. We have a motion to approve.
Motion to approve. Second.
We have a vote. Mike,
Approved.
Dan,
Approved.
Caesar approved.
I approve.
Kevin approved. Okay, thank you, John, for both of those presentations, and good luck with getting the approval. I'm sure
Right, and
you'll come to.
Thank you to the board and the staff for expediting this, which we felt was sort of an emergency condition. So thank you all for your help on that.
I'm sure you'll come to agreement on the engineering necessary to get it done right.
Yeah, we'll wrap it up. Thank you, Caesar.
Thank you.
All right.
Number 6, 2022-19, 21 South Continent Street.
Good evening, members of the board. I hope everybody can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Great. My name's Bill Witt. I'm the architect for this project. I'm representing John Cousins and Beverly Adams of 21 South Continent. Essentially, what we're doing over there is an interior renovation, and as part of that renovation, we decided to rebuild, reconfigure an existing rear set of steps leading up to the back sunroom. Doing that and adding central air conditioning has resulted in an increase in our lot coverage of 31 square feet. And the house is currently existing non-conforming, but we're not doing, there's not an expansion on this project. We're no excavating. It's really just pouring a couple of footings for a rear deck. I'd be happy to share my screen and show the board if you're interested in seeing it.
Yeah, let's do that quickly, please.
Okay, so if you're looking at my screen now, the existing set of steps led directly up to a door on the side of the house, which was a dangerous condition. So we're changing that to do a set of steps that will allow, sorry, my computer's frozen here. The steps will have a 3-foot by 3-foot platform before entering the house. And that's essentially the increase in coverage is by expanding the rear steps slightly to allow for a comfortable platform at the edge of the door. And again, in the site plan, you can see the area where that occurs. We are aware that the house is not conforming, so we understand we'd be going for a variance for lot coverage.
Okay. It is in the historic district, but is an exception, Mary Ann, what's that called? Non-con,
So it's not an exception. It's not included in the historic district because it's not a non-contributing house. It's in the historic district physically,
Right.
but not every building in the district is a contributing building.
Okay, thank you. And could you tell us about the shape of the building in regards to, you're in the view preservation overlay district?
We are indeed. We're in the View Preservation Overlay District. I made mention of that in my project description. And you can see in some of the photos, unfortunately, my computer's frozen right now. But since the work that we're proposing is entirely in the back of the house, this porch, it's a two-story structure. There's no possible way that this would interfere with anyone's views. It's central to the house and it's tucked in behind an existing one-story structure in the two-story main house. Nothing breaks the ridge line. It doesn't even go up as high as the plate line of the house.
Okay, any comment from the board, Michael?
No comment.
Yeah,
I have no comment.
I have no further comment. The other Mike?
I do not.
No. Sarah, anything from the public?
Nobody's raising their hand to speak, and there are no comments in the chat.
Mary Ann, do we have a resolution?
Whereas in May 2022, John Costins and Beverly Adams applied for site development plan approval to renovate their house, including reconstructing rear steps at 21 South Cottonwood Street, which is a non-contributing building in the historic district and which is located in the village's View Preservation District. Whereas the AC pad intrudes into the required side yard and the steps will increase the already non-compliant coverage, necessitating variances from the Zoning Board of Appeals. And whereas town engineering reviewed the plans and in a memorandum dated May 31st, 2022, had only 2 minor comments. And whereas the planning board held a public hearing on the application on June 1st, and whereas the proposed improvements will have no impact on the view of the Hudson River from neighboring properties to the right of way. And whereas the action is type 2 action under SEQA and therefore requires no environmental review. Now therefore be it resolved that the planning board grants the application for site development plan approval for the improvements reflected in the drawings entitled Interior and Exterior Alterations to Costins Adams Residence, prepared by William P. Wood Architect, subject to receiving coverage and side yard variances from the ZBA and complying with the items in Hans May 31st, 2022 memorandum.
Okay, thank you. Any questions on the resolution from the board? No questions. We have a motion to approve.
Motion to approve. Second.
We have a vote. Michael?
Approve. I approve.
Caesar approved. Michael?
I approve.
Kevin?
Kevin approved.
Okay, thank you very much. You're all set to go.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Number 7, 2022-18, special permit for Mercy College at 555 Broadway.
Good evening, Chair and members of the Planning Board. My name is Seth Mandelbaum, partner with the law firm of McCullough, Goldberger and Stout. Pleased to be here once again on behalf of Mercy College. With me once again is Tom Simmons, Vice President of Facilities at the college, and Chris Tramotola, who is a landscape architect on the project. We are here once again regarding the entry to the campus, and we presented that in great detail at your May meeting, so we weren't planning on presenting that again unless you wanted to see something specific. rather, we thought we would just briefly update the board and then discuss next steps. So we filed a response. Excuse me.
To briefly update the board.
Thank you, Chairman. So we filed a response on May 18th to the comments that came in last month from Han Engineering and Suzanne Nolan. We also had the infiltration and deep test pits done, which confirmed that there were no changes to the stormwater plan. Chris Tramutola did a site visit with Suzanne Nolan and walked the site, and they went through all the different trees to be removed, many of which, if not all of which, are in very poor condition or health or both. And finally, we confirmed for Han Engineering that when everything is included, including paths and walks and walls, that the coverage, when you add those to the buildings, including existing and proposed, it clocks in at about 14%, where 15% is the maximum coverage. So we confirm we do not need a variance for coverage. However, as we discussed last month, and I've discussed with Mary Ann, we do need technical variances from the OCA and Broadway buffers, even though no new buildings are proposed, but based on the definitions in the code and the village's practice, we do need those variances. So my understanding from discussing with Mary Ann the last couple of days is based on the comments that came in for this month from Suzanne Nolan in particular, and also from Doug Hahn, that the board likely would not be inclined to grant conditional amended site plan approval this evening, but would consider referring us to the zoning board for those two variances from the OCA and Broadway buffers. We can get on their June 21st agenda and file revised materials with this board by the June 22nd deadline to come back to you, hopefully variances in hand, we hope, at your July 6th meeting for final. So that's kind of my brief summary of where we've been and hopefully where we're going. And we are happy to answer any questions that the board might have this evening.
Ed and Doug, do you agree with the coverage statement that he made?
Yeah, I did see it and we reviewed it. I'm not sure if it was copied or not on that, but we did look at it.
So we're okay with the number and we're okay with the fact it does not need it.
Yeah, they added the walls and the path, which were not included originally.
Okay, from what I understand, checking our landscape architect, there are still some issues with IDing village regulated trees so that she can evaluate the plantings as replacements for taking down village regulated trees. I'm not sure if you did that, but I'm just reading some of her comments that I saw today. And she still has an issue with the path, with root protection and where it didn't seem to her, or at least what I read that she wrote, that the plantings were very specific as it relates to the path. In general, putting in the path, we don't want it to, and I'm sure you understand, you don't want to interfere with any existing roots or any new roots from planting. So that needs to be clarified. You just need to work with Suzanne Nolan on that.
Yes.
I asked, go ahead.
I'm sorry. We did see those comments, and Chris, I don't know if you want to comment on the chairman's comment there. I know you are working very closely with Suzanne on this and met her out in the field at least once already.
Yes, I've been speaking with, I'm assuming everyone can hear me. Good evening. I've been working. What was that?
The problem in the past has been the applicants not hearing us because of our own audio.
Yeah, we hear you very well tonight compared to last month. So.
You experienced.
I've been speaking with Suzanne Nolan. I met her on site there. I believe just to give a little bit more background on that comment, she wants to make sure that the drip lines of the existing trees are protected for where we're putting this path. Since my walkthrough with Suzanne Nolan, I have met a certified arborist from Davy Tree Company out there on site. And they're going to be working with us, with Mercy College, on this to ensure that there's no damage to any existing root systems.
Okay, great. And I asked offhand, it's not part of the application, if you could identify some specimen trees, and I specifically mentioned the largest oak I've ever seen in my life. It has to be 8 feet in diameter in front of one of the houses adjacent to Hudson Avenue. I forget the
Yes.
name of it.
As part of the walkthrough with the arborist, we talked about expediting the evaluation and report on the trees within this project scope, but furthermore going in to identify some of those heritage trees on the remaining parts of campus.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's just a good idea, as long as we're looking at trees too. I'm an engineer, but that tree looks like it's special.
Yeah.
I think it needs some, and I've seen other trees that look very special on the property.
Mm-hmm.
No problem.
Okay. You did not mention, maybe you did, you need to get state parks, and you mentioned the Broadway buffer variance. There's an aqueduct buffer variance, and the new sign needs to go to the ARB, the Architectural Review Board. I'm not sure if you were aware of that. You didn't mention it. Maybe you are aware of it.
Yeah, I spoke to Mary Ann, and I know Tom, I think, spoke to Ed Marin about that early on. Our understanding is that would happen after the site plan process at the building permit stage or sign permit stage.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Okay, we just want, thank you for confirming.
And, we will go over an EAF report, but we won't do that tonight. Anybody have any comments? Joe? Mike?
No comment. No question.
Dan?
I have no questions.
No comments. Okay. No, thank you. Sarah, anything from the public?
Nobody was raising their hand to speak, and there are no comments in the chat.
All right. Does anybody on the board have any difficulty with having them go to the ZBA for these various variances? And then they come back with the proper tree plan and everything, and then there's no resolution tonight, but they can go to the ZBA without a resolution to get these variances and then come back.
No problem. I have no problems.
Right?
I agree.
Yeah. No problem. Okay, so you're all set. You can go to the ZBA and get the things we talked about and work on your plantings for your trees. And we'll see you next month.
Okay, thank you, Chairman, members of the board, everyone. Have a safe summer. We'll see you next month after July 4th. Take care.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Number 8, 2022-11, 7 Irving Place.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, village council, staff. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Good evening. Thank you very much. Lino Sharetta, partner with the law firm of Blakely, Platt and Schmidt on behalf of Adi and Shireen Bloom for 7 Irving Place. With me this evening, we also have Renee Byers from Renee Byers Architecture. Mr. Chairman, we're just here tonight, hopefully for what will be a referral to the zoning board on this matter. Last month, we had discussed this, and I know we had some homework to do. We did receive Han's comments dated May 31st, 2022. We were able to whittle down some of the comments from the previous memo with respect to some of the items that Mr. Han had noted. So now we are down to roughly 5 comments with respect to the memo. Also, we had to discuss, Mary Ann and I along with our surveyor. We had a chat about a week ago, I think, regarding just access regarding Strawberry Lane during construction. And I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we satisfied the village attorney's concerns based on the fact that we showed access pursuant to a filed map of May 11th, 1987, and that material was submitted to the village attorney for review. Because I know that was a comment in Han's memo last month, so I did not see it in this memo, so hopefully that has been satisfied. We did update the plan, and I know we have a busy agenda, so what I'd like to do, Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to have Renee just briefly go over the site plan. And again, hopefully tonight we can get to the zoning board. We too would like to be heard for this June zoning board meeting. So hopefully we can accomplish that, and also obviously architectural review board. So without further ado, unless there are questions for you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I'd like just to turn it over to Renee just to briefly highlight some of the changes from the last plan that we have this evening.
And we'd just like to see the site plan, and I think that's what you said she's gonna do.
Yep. So Renee, if you could just give a brief overview.
Very well.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Renee Byers, landscape architect for Audience Shireen Blum. I'm going to share my screen now. A second here. What I brought up here is the drainage plan from. Can you hear me okay?
I
You
can
don't
hear
have
you,
it?
but I don't see.
Yeah,
All right.
the plan's not up yet, Renee.
All right, hang on a second. Sorry. I did one last button. Sorry. There's share. Do you have it now? Do you see it
We
now?
have it now.
Okay, perfect.
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you, Caesar. So this is the drainage plan from Hudson Engineering. I just will back up quickly. We did take care of all the previous month's comments. We were already aware, of course, that we needed variances. It was pointed out, I'm going to combine comments from last month and this month. It was pointed out to us previously that this was going to be considered a corner lot, therefore we redrew our yards. And in doing so, the rear yard is now located what we previously had as the side yard. So that left a couple of that now leaves a couple of structures which are small but need to be added to our variance list beyond the swimming pool, which is a small stone wall that has a niche for a grill in it, a fire pit, and an outdoor shower. There is a comment in the current set that we just received this morning from Hahn Engineering, and I had a quick chat with Doug Hahn today. There was a spot grade on a top of retaining wall, which was over 6.5 feet. That can readily be changed. And I went over the grade with Doug today. So that one can go off our list. Our other variance that will be required is for coverage, and following Caesar's recommendations last time, we did take a really close look and whittled down paths and other various bits of paving, and were able to get 23 feet or so underneath the existing coverage, but we're still changing the non-conforming coverage, so we will seek a variance for that. Other previous comments included that we should not show any proposed work outside of the property line. So we did correct that. We corrected the retaining wall detail that was requested. One of the latest comments, there is a comment about the construction entrance that I went over with Doug today. So coming from the Strawberry Line side is considered now okay. But Doug said that there was a request that we show the entrance a little farther down, where the actual paving of Strawberry is more or less in line with the Blum property line. So we will be able to do that readily. And there was already a tree there that we had slated to come down. So it seems like a workable solution. And we
Can I just
definitely intend
clarify
to.
one thing here?
Go right ahead, Mary.
Yeah, Just to clarify, Renee, it wasn't just a request. I mean, the problem is, that temporary, what do you call it? The
Construction access. Yeah.
Yeah, but you're actually putting something there physical, and you can't we can't approve you putting something physical off the village's property. I mean, off your property. So that's why we suggested moving it up where your property actually adjoins the street.
Okay,
So
sorry,
it's
just a choice of word, but yes, we will do that.
Okay.
Regarding the trees that have, when you move that access, construction access,
Yes,
the trees that have to come down are okay? You just have to present a planting plan to replace those trees?
we've already done that. So I just pulled over now, our, can you?
If you
can
already
see-
did it, that's fine.
Yes, if you see that on the plan that we already submitted and that Suzanne Nolan approved. So now I'm now zooming in, if you can see where I'm located here. Here's the Strawberry Lane paving. And so we had already slated these sort of a double Norway maple in bad condition to be removed. So we can bring the road in right here where the Strawberry Lane paving is contiguous with the property line. So without changing our planting plan or making any revisions as far as that goes.
Okay, it wasn't, in talking to Suzanne, it wasn't clear to me that taking those trees down had replacement trees already in the system.
Yes, that was included in our last submittal that was approved. There were no further comments in our last submittal. And this is on the set of drawings you currently have. This isn't anything new.
You're going to have to point that out because as of yesterday, when I spoke to Suzanne, my understanding in talking to her, that replacement trees for those two trees for the construction access was still pending. So you need to clarify.
Okay, I will certainly do that. I didn't receive any comment in this memo last time when we did show these to be removed. In fact, I did talk to her about the removal last time. So I think I just want to, I'll certainly go over it. That's not a problem.
Well, it's a fluid situation moving the construction access, so something might have, either it exists and we just didn't understand it that way, or it doesn't exist and I'm sure you'll take care of it so that it does
Yes,
exist.
we will. It exists and we showed it.
All right, and just to clarify, the rear yard setbacks on the backyard, the shower, the barbecue pit, and the fire pit, you did say that, correct?
Yes, I did say that. And those are, they are all located within the side yard setback, but the side yard setback no longer applies now that this property is deemed a corner lot.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I'm going to poll the board for two reasons. One, any questions on what we've heard? And I think it's okay to go to the ZBA without a resolution. They come back with the site plan adjusted for the construction access, immediately entering Strawberry without going over someone else's property. So are we okay with what we saw? And are we okay with going to the ZBA without a resolution and they come back? All right?
Yeah, I'm okay.
You're okay?
Yep.
Yeah?
I'm okay on both issues.
I'm okay. Mike?
I'm okay on both issues.
Okay.
I'm okay.
Is there anything from the public?
Nobody's raising their hand to speak, and there are no comments in the chat.
Okay, thank you for the presentation and understanding the need to move that access road. I think we're okay for you to go to the ZBA for these variances that you need. And then you come back and if everything's fine, we'll move ahead with a resolution in July.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. You all have a good night. Thank you.
All right, thank you
all.
very much.
Bye-bye
Thank you
now.
all very much. Good night.
Number nine, 2022, 20. It almost sounded like number 99. Aaron, number 9. Number 9, 2022, 20. 1 Langdon Avenue.
Hey, good evening. This is Andrew Soar with my wife, Jessica. We're the homeowners of 1 Langdon Avenue. I can pull up the plan. We are here pursuing a project to install 2 egress windows on the west side of our house. Let me share my screen here.
Is your consultant absent or you don't have one?
We are presenting here on our own behalf. We have an architect and a contractor, but given the small nature of this project, we decided to represent ourselves at this meeting. If you can see the picture on the screen, we are installing 2 egress windows on the west side of our house. They'd be here and here. And scrolling down, you can have a better view of the cross section of the egress window. Here is the cross-section view. So you can see all the various materials. This is a pretty minimal project. It's not visible from the street. We're not altering the appearance of our house in any material way, and we're not changing the footprint of our house. We are, as laid out in the application package, we're working with ResReal as our architect and Sunrise as our contractor, neither of whom are on the call tonight, but they're engaged and ready to start work. Happy to answer any questions.
All right, what's missing is a site plan with the utilities shown, because there's going to be some digging. And also, you're in the Broadway buffer with your work, so you're going to need a variance from the ZBA because you're in the Broadway buffer. The Broadway buffer should be shown on the site plan that you're going to develop. You need a coverage variance, and the floor area ratio has a problem because the basement is going to be legalized and you need calculations need work on the FAR. Ed, you want to elaborate on any of that?
Yeah, it's not that because the basement's finished, but the FAR calculations were not done correctly. They're missing some of the basements for the credit for the garage. So they need to include the portion of the garage that's more than foot facing any street between the garage, and then subtract 250 feet.
You want to go over the?
There's a little difficult. There's a little difficult.
You have to, excuse me, sir, you have to, because we're on half Zoom and half in person, there's a slight delay in the audio, so you need to wait until the person is finished for a second.
Yeah, we do not believe you need a variance for the FAR, but the FAR calculations need to be fine-tuned at that basement specifically.
Yeah, and do you want to go over these site plan requirements?
So a site plan includes showing the site, the distances from the property lines of the proposed structure. Your window wells are a structure, they are coverage. Broadway buffer is 50 feet from the property line. You're less than that. And any encroachment or incursion into the Broadway buffer requires zoning board approval as well as your over-year coverage, and you have an activity there. We can go over it offline if you like.
Yeah, that would be helpful to go over it offline in more detail. Our understanding is that we did all the calculations correctly and provided all the information required per the application process. This perhaps we're just missing the Broadway variance on this plan, but certainly receptive to hear everything we need to add into our application to if anything that's missing. We thought we had everything.
What you're providing there is a survey on a site plan. It's a tool to draw your site plan. So you need to draw a site plan showing the distances from Broadway. What you have is an interpretive, and then the reason for the utilities, you see the gas line shown on the survey, approximate location of the gas line.
So, yeah, that's on here. The gas line's on here.
Remember, survey, not a site plan. An alternative, you can't just alter somebody's site without a survey. Your architect will know that.
Okay, so we need to translate this into a site plan. Okay.
All right, so you have some work to do for the next meeting.
And just on, you mentioned the zoning board and the Broadway buffer. Do we need to go in front of the zoning board, or laying the Broadway buffer out on this site plan will be sufficient?
We need to have a site plan that we can forward to the ZBA. There's not this is site development plan. You're applying for site development plan approval, and we need a site plan to be submitted.
Yeah, no, I think his question was, is it enough to put the Broadway buffer on the plan? No, you still, because you're doing work in the Broadway buffer, you need to go to the ZBA for permission for that.
Okay, so should we do that in parallel to getting back on this agenda for next month?
No. Until we have the ZBA relies on this board to get all the numbers correct, so that you're not paying for consultants for two boards, you're only paying for consultants for this board. So until you get your paperwork right, it's very difficult to send you to the ZBA. You'll just be spinning your wheels.
Okay, understood. So we'll be back in a month and then go to the ZBA after.
Yeah, once we deem the package complete, yes.
Once
Okay.
we determine the package is complete, yes.
We'll maybe we can follow up offline to make sure we have everything in our package.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you. We'll see you next month.
Thank you. Looking forward to it.
Next is number 10, 2022-21. Field Terrace.
One more, Susan.
I'll give it 9. 10.
He said there's just one more.
Oh, I thought you know I missed one. No, it's one more. I know, I looked at the time, we're doing pretty good.
What David have for dinner?
By the time we finish with David, it'll be tomorrow. Oops, sorry.
You guys are flying through the agenda much faster than we predicted.
Before you start, let me, because there's many topics on this, and because there's an audio delay, I would appreciate if you run through your presentation. We'll hold our questions to the end, and then I will run through various topics. I'll try to do the easier ones first, the ones that I'm sure have easy explanations on various topics. So with that said, please proceed with your presentation.
Terrific. Thank you, Caesar. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. And I assume you can all hear me adequately. Casey helped me improve my audio, so I can now hear all of you. Good evening. We're here tonight as we kind of suggested at our first meeting, where we came in on behalf of Emily and Jamie Sahara with regard to site capacity, and achieved a site capacity of 1. Hopefully we got all of you excited and interested enough. We're coming in tonight with what we think is a really exciting, innovative, single-family house design. We know that this is a lot that has been vacant in the community post subdivision a number of years ago. And our clients purchased the property, as we explained to you, back in 2021. I'm joined by the design, really our design team from the Up Studio, John Patrick Winberry and John DePaulo, Alan Pilch, our project engineer, Greg Merritt, our landscape architect, and my colleague Casey Brenner. I know our clients, at least my understanding is our clients did venture into Village Hall earlier this evening, and we're planning on physically being present. My understanding from some email traffic is that they may have left. I don't know whether they're on and observing. I certainly hope that they are. And Mr. Chairman and members of the board, I did not discourage them from going and sitting there live We explained that our team needed to be remote. So if you did not want them there and sitting there for the last hour, hour and a half, I'm to fault because I did not tell them they could not attend the meeting. So needless to say, Jamie and Emily are very excited and very involved in this project. So we're here tonight with regard to
David, so a woman had poked her head in, asked if this was the planning board meeting, and then left. So if that, I don't know if that was.
Michael, I chatted with her.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we chatted with her.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but we did tell her that it'd be on very late on the agenda. I didn't
We're
think,
surprised that it doesn't move as.
yeah, we didn't think it would move this quickly. So.
yes. So I figured that. So that's why, Mr. Chairman, that's exactly why I raised the topic, because I know something took place. And both, I want you to understand why I didn't tell them not to attend, and I'm now going to have to explain to them why, why you all may have encouraged them to leave. Having said that, we have a 88,308 square foot, just
Hold
over.
on a second. Dave, hold on. I would hate to think we encouraged anybody to leave. We just explained the situation and it was their decision.
Fair enough. Fair enough. We have a just over 2 acre vacant residential lot in the 1F40 zoning district. As I indicated a moment ago, we did appear and justify our site capacity in excess of 1, so the property can accommodate a single family residence. We're here tonight to begin the process of reviewing with your board our site development plan application. We believe we've presented a zoning compliant single family residence. And as I'm sure you all realize, a little bit earlier today, we did receive Doug Hahn's memo and appreciate the fact that we did get it, obviously having just received it today. Once again, we did not have a tremendous amount of time as a development team to analyze, let alone respond and or confer with our clients. But I do want to highlight for the board, we had a very productive meeting with staff last month that Doug did not attend. Some of the topics that are in the memo, we thought we had addressed with Ed, and maybe those are issues that can be addressed in a technical way offline, and we need not go into all of that with the board. But we're happy to address as much as we can if you would like us to do so. I will tell you that the engineering issues that Doug raised, Alan Pilch is quite comfortable that we can address those in our next submission to the board. So we received a number of comments about pipe size, notes on the plan, and some information specifically related to drainage. And we're pleased that Doug raised them. We think we can address them. I also want to state that I think you know, both from our neighbor and from us, that we have been in contact with Ms. Claire Halleck, who lives in the house immediately adjacent to ours, which was the Herb Allen home that was part of the original Allen subdivision that created the Sahara's building lot. Ms. Halleck did explain to me by phone and then to Alan Pilch when he went out there and visited the property with her that she has been experiencing some drainage issues, obviously for some period of time, and obviously having nothing to do with a proposed home on the vacant lot. Whatever drainage issue she is experiencing, obviously is a pre-existing condition. And interestingly enough, as Alan can elaborate upon, and as Doug may want to go out and see, it does appear that there is a condition that may have been created by another neighbor or neighbors that exists out there and traverses both Ms. Halleck's property and a portion of our client's property. So at a minimum, we think that we can help address that drainage situation, maybe improve it, but unequivocally, I think Alan will be able to demonstrate to the board through this process and to Doug's satisfaction that we're not going to exacerbate or make that situation worse for our neighbors. So I wanted to make sure you all knew we were aware of that, and we look forward to continuing to work cooperatively with our neighbors. So with that as my intro, I'm going to turn it over to John Patrick Winberry to walk us through a brief visual presentation of the lot, the house, how it was designed, the evolution of this kind of innovative design. Then Alan Pilch is going to explain the basic fundamental aspects of our site plan, the location of our drainage features, our grading and our driveway entrance. And Greg Merritt is prepared to briefly address the landscaping. We got some comments on the entry wall, and we want to make sure that the board gets a good understanding of how this house and this lot and the layout all work on this site. So JP, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, David. Good evening, board. Again, as David mentioned, my name is John Patrick Winberry. I'm an architect and partner at the Up Studio. We are very excited for the opportunity to work in the beautiful community of the Village of Irvington, and it's a really special place, and we're excited that our architecture is going to be a part of that. I'm going to show you a proposed diagram and share my screen right now. We think these diagrams are important just to show, as David had mentioned, an evolution of the design process. And then I'll hand it over to Alan, who will get a little more technical with the floor plans. I'm sorry, with the plan that he devised, and Greg Moret again on the landscape side. So can everyone see my screen okay? Great. As David had mentioned, Field Terrace is the subject property, which is indicated here in the light pochette. And the actual Field Terrace Avenue is running in this direction right here. We think it's really important in a project like this to look at the project in 3D. So we put together a series of diagrams to help kind of orient ourselves in the overall evolution of the design. And that camera angle is going to be taken from this zone right here. So again, Field Terrace Avenue is running in this direction right here. I'm going to snap the next slide in 3D. And then this is Field Terrace F happening right here as well. Again, this is our subject property, a vacant piece of land, as David had mentioned. And one of the first things that we study on any of the projects that we work on is the path of the sun. We think it's very integral into the overall architecture, and just to be very smart with understanding where that is. Second, we want to explore that on this property, it is a steep slope in the front edge of it, and we want it to be very protective of that slope and figure out a way to get into the project with minimal disturbance. So we found a natural topography to get us into the property, which allowed us to carve in our proposed driveway with retaining. Additionally, what we wanted to do is take the hill that's coming down off of Field Terrace onto our property and extend that hill down. By extending it, it's allowing us to bury an proposed garage area underneath this zone right here. Additionally, we have then a covered terrace, and that brings us back into the house proper, which is our mudroom and service area. Then coming forward is our entry, our guest bedrooms, and our gathering space in the back of the house. That gathering space, we wanted to interact with the landscape even further. So we cut it and twisted it and brought it down and buried it into the landscape on the back edge here. What that does for us, it allowed, I'm sorry, any comments?
We're going to save our comments to the end because we don't want to interrupt.
Keep going, JP.
You got it. I appreciate it. So then we extend our covered terrace area right here with seating below, and then stitch in a garden connecting those two zones. On the second floor, we have a primary suite. We have our secondary suite with bedrooms that we then turn to the street that we're accessing our driveway point. It's just a way to reference that we've carved in to create this driveway, and now the architecture is referencing back to that. We have a roof deck on the rear of the home. We have our fenestration, which is our windows and doors. You can see here we have a 3-car garage with a carport that's happening adjacent to it. Additionally, we have then our finished zone, which is our pool and our terrace zone and our patios. Again, what we're trying to show here is just an overall understanding of the design aspects of what we were looking to accomplish for the Saharas. We think this, again, this is just a brief overview just to orient ourselves. I think it's important to hand over to Alan and allowing him to get into more of the technical aspects of the site plan that he has devised for us. Alan, I'm going to stop sharing.
Thanks, JP. Alan?
I will share too. Can everyone see that?
Very informative how you built that up.
Thank you very much.
I'm assuming everyone can see that and hear me.
We can see it. You're
Excellent.
good.
So as JP mentioned, the proposed house, which is here in this, it's located in the central portion of the lot and will lie within all the setbacks on the property. So it lies within all the required building setbacks. Access is obtained from a new driveway from Field Terrace. When I walked into the property, this is the place to go because that's where the slope is least. And it's a very easy walk for, I'll say, an older person like me to get into this property. And what we had provided also was a profile of the driveway. It's on sheet 112. And we showed how we come in off at a 3.59% slope, maximizes to 11.12, then goes up slightly to the garage doors at 1.57%. I just want to point that out. And back to the plan. So that's how it was designed. The driveway itself is about, let me just see, it's about 186 feet from point of intersection on Field Terrace Avenue over to the face of the garage. I'll also say that from a engineering perspective, you can see on sheet 102, we had the grades along the driveway, which were provided, which obviously matched the profile we had done. There is a proposed water service line, which connects to the existing service line, existing water main in Field Terrace Avenue. I'll also point out there's an existing 20-foot wide utility easement and a 4-inch sanitary sewer line, which goes to the southern property line. And it is our intention also to provide a new sanitary sewer pipe by gravity to connect up to the existing 4-inch sanitary sewer, which then goes to Ardsley Avenue East. And finally, as you can probably see on this plan too, there is a very comprehensive stormwater management plan in which there's a network of catch basins, storm drainage pipes, which will convey runoff from the house and the driveway to 2 subsurface stormwater management facilities, one which basically takes from the northern portion of the property and the other from the southern portion of the property and the, kind of like the central portion of it. And prior to having runoff enter infiltration facilities, we're providing a level of treatment and care to make sure that these are, protected. One is to put a pretreatment facility in front of both. And the other is to provide what's called an isolator row. The idea is to wrap the one row of the chambers in a filter fabric, which helps contain any sediment, which might actually, most of it will be stopped by the pretreatment facility, but if there is any, it provides an extra level of care. And I'll just say also, we submitted a very detailed stormwater management report for the consideration of the board and the village's engineers. And we also demonstrated that the both the peak rate of runoff and the volume of runoff exiting the property following the development of this house and driveway and this whole lot will actually be less than under the existing condition. So, that's one thing that we were aiming to do, and I believe this comprehensive plan does achieve that.
Alan, just very briefly, because I don't want to belabor the point until the board really wants to go into it. Can you just identify where the Halleck property is?
Yes.
Where you walked and observed that swale? And if you would just, again, very briefly explain what you observed in terms of man-made diversion of water from other property onto our property and Ms. Halleck's property.
Okay, let me show you that the Halleck's property is to the south of the Sahara's lot. There is, let me just zoom in a little bit on this, or maybe I'll show it on, here on this exhibit. I think this helps a little bit, if I may.
Yes.
Let me just get this out of here too. It's one of these things you have to learn how to use this program. What there is, and this is on the survey, from the survey that was done on the property, there's a swale and I'll use the term, a man-made swale, which conveys runoff from the property that's to the east of the Halleck's property. It conveys this runoff down this, I'll call it a flow path, because there's a berm which has been created on the Halleck's, on the property here.
On our property,
On our
Sahara's
property. It is on our property, because there is a chain link fence along here. So there is a berm on the property, on our property, which conveys the flow to, I'll say, a low point here. What occurred that obviously is a concern to us, and it's a concern to the Hallecks, is that during the intense rainfall event of Ida, I believe it was, it sort of jumped this and was directed toward the house, and that's what caused the flooding in their house. And the idea of the flow path, though, the berm that they created, was to try to divert the flow to continue on the Sahara property. But that's actually the situation here, where there's existing swale and berms to kind of direct the flow to continue in a westward direction on this lot, on the Sahara property. But what happened on that one event during that very intense rainfall is sort of jumped the berm, if you will, and then was conveyed toward the house. That's what happened.
Alan, do you currently, do you plan or propose to modify the swale or the berm or anything in that area?
The plan for the development of this property does not require any modifications at all to any portion of the, I'll call it the berm, the flow path, and the source of the drainage that flows onto the Halleck's property.
Got it. And Mr. Chairman and members of the board, what I want you to know, and Alan, you can unshare now if you would, please. I want the board to understand that our clients did not install the berm or the swale. To the best of their knowledge, their seller did not, but they can't speak to that. The fence encroachment that Alan mentioned, there is a fence that apparently does benefit our neighbors, the Hallecks, and they have a written agreement to let that fence remain in its current location, I believe, for approximately another 2 years. And so, as best we see the situation, we have a very open and neighborly relationship with Ms. Halleck and her husband, and expect that to continue. But want you to understand that the issue to which she refers in her written communication predates our development and emanates from a source offsite. And with that, I'm going
to break my rules and ask a question without before the end. To go back to that site plan you had.
Go ahead, Alan. Go back to your last one with the flow path.
I will say that I walked this entire length when I was out there with Ms. Halleck, and afterwards from the property itself, I walked on this side of the fence line down to this location as well. So I have walked that.
Sounds like the chairman has a question. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Sorry.
How do you preclude water from Field Terrace coming down the hill, avoiding the doctor's Castellano property and coming down the hill and hitting that swale? How do you preclude water from coming down your property from Field Terrace and hitting that swale?
I think there's one way that comes to my mind that it could be perhaps accomplished, and that would be to install some type of.
You're not answering the question. How do you preclude water from Field Terrace coming down the hill on your client's property? Let's see, north of the Castellano property line
from here,
and heading west down from Field Terrace.
From the new improvements.
I think what happens here, just when you look at the grades, is that this hill slope here actually bypasses the swale that conveys the flow. It actually conveys it to the west. So this portion of the property, if you look at the contouring, it actually kind of flows this way and misses it. It
But
really
if
does.
If it did what you just said, wouldn't it be part of the water that jumped the end of the berm and went on the other property?
Well, when I was out there with Ms. Halleck, she really said it was actually drainage from the Castellano property that caused her issue.
Asking you,
And
not
I
what
really
she
don't
said.
think I don't think a wooded site will really contribute that much runoff. Because the amount of runoff off of even a wooded leaf littered
That
property is
storm-
probably pretty minimal.
That storm was a 500-year storm. Never
Correct.
seen anything like it.
I disagree.
And my second point, David, is, if the water is coming off your property, it's your water. So I know you're an inventive guy, and I would appreciate it if you use some of that inventiveness to try to resolve.
Absolutely. Alan, unshare, please. So, Mr. Chairman, the reason I affirmatively confronted the issue, right, I could have just stopped after Alan and kept going. We know you've received a communication. We know there's an issue out there. We know we need to examine it. I just want to go back a minute, though. Water coming off our property that comes off our property naturally, and that, God deposited the contours and the vegetation, and it flows, can continue to flow. So I want to make a legal assertion that I hope Mary Ann will agree with, and if not, she and I will talk about it offline. But if someone captures water and in man-made fashion diverts and channelizes it, they become responsible for it as a matter of law. However, if water just traverses my property and goes onto my neighbor's property, I assume no liability for that. So the reason that I asked Alan to explain what he did is because I do want to make sure the Village of Irvington understands our clients haven't channelized or done anything. Somebody apparently did something on our property. That appears fairly clear. I'm told that there may be things that were done off both Halleck and Sahara's property, but I'll let the engineers inspect that. So, Mr. Chairman, we're here to try to address it. We don't want to see our neighbors have a difficulty. We certainly don't want our property to create any difficulty. Alan's going to make sure from sound engineering practice, and I'm sure Doug's going to make sure from sound engineering practice, we're not going to create a problem. But I'm identifying what I believe, Mr. Chairman, you were notified of in writing, which is a pre-existing condition created by others in a man-made fashion. So together, we can all collectively examine that as we go through this process.
That would be greatly appreciated. And as I said, I know you're very inventive. And if we have an opportunity to fix somebody's problem, I don't want to ignore it. And it's been pointed out that the current proposal, as proposed, looking at the contours, as you said, probably would not contribute to this water issue going off the property.
Correct.
However,
that doesn't
and
solve
Doug
it.
Hunt, that doesn't solve it. But Doug Hunt
Right.
suggested a site, because you are building up the soil to cover the south end of the building. You're creating fill and you're changing the contours. So on paper, it does not appear that water coming off that fill against the south end of the building will contribute to this problem, because it's going to be collected and sent down to the treatment system. But as Doug pointed out, perhaps a field visit to make sure that where that fill, it doesn't come out too far, and then the water from that runoff of the new fill doesn't
Understood.
contribute to the water problem.
Understood. So we endorse having Doug and Alan go to the property together at the appropriate time with whomever else needs to attend. So I think that's a great idea. And with that, I think it's a perfect transition to Greg Merritt, who's going to speak briefly about the landscape plan. And one of the issues, Greg, I know we just kind of heard from Doug earlier today, but if you could talk a little bit about the entrance drive and that retaining wall, because I think it is important that the board understands why we believe that retaining wall was designed in a code compliant fashion.
Okay, I'll try not to interrupt until the end. Go ahead.
So it's always welcome. It's okay. It was your rule, Caesar, not mine.
Well, there's so many topics. I don't want to bounce around all over
It's all
the place.
good. It's all good.
Get nothing done.
Greg Merritt.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Greg Moret, Bayview Landscape Architecture. Pleasure being presented to you this evening, and pleasure being a part of this team. I will share my screen. I will just start with a quick color rendering of one of the plans that's in the submission packet, just to help really illustrate the extensive sort of perimeter screening that we have on the property, and just generally make the driveway and the interior renovations pop a little bit. This is truly a dream project for a landscape architect. We're really tasked by the clients to have all this development, the home, the driveway, feel they've effectively been dropped into this beautiful natural setting. They love the wooded nature. They love the large mature trees. They love the hillside, even off Field Terrace. They love the use of native plant material. They've requested, pollinators, four-season interest, berries. How do we attract birds, butterflies? So it really is a special project from a landscape architectural standpoint. I will jump now into the design set itself. Page 1 was our tree removal, tree protection. We obviously take that very seriously. Remain, but it's important obviously to protect them. So there are details showing which trees in particular we're going to be protecting throughout the site, and then exactly how we're going to be doing that. One of the comments from Ms. Nolan was further identifying the tree canopy, the drip line of the trees, which we will certainly add at our next for our next submission. Page 2 was the site plan, effectively just noting, just piggybacking on Alan's presentation, the driveway and enhanced material at the driveway entrance. So we don't have this sort of decaying asphalt situation at the driveway entrance. The main residence, cooking and dining at the south here, a covered porch area that steps down to the pool with infinity edge. We're also taking advantage of that topography. Again, we want to manipulate as little of the grading as possible.
Excuse me, we have a comment
hence
that you're
the
going.
grade.
Yeah, hold on. You're speaking too fast and it's hard to comprehend. Go ahead.
I apologize. Just effectively that the house and the landscape, all terraces with the topography, the goal is to affect as little of the existing topography as possible. That's why effectively there's, steps down to the rear dining and cooking terraces. There's steps down to the pool area. We're looking to do an infinity edge on the pool itself that the water will cascade off into a catch pool at a lower elevation. So we're really just looking to, again, have a minimal impact on the whole site in general. As for the landscape plan, which I certainly would not expect you to be able to look at in this, in this scale and on a screen, but I appreciate Ms. Nolan recognizing that we made considerable efforts to use as much native plant material as possible. Again, that was the goal of the Saharas from the beginning, to have this very naturalized environment, four-season interest, fall color, berries, pollinators, have this area along Field Terrace be extremely natural and very private from the road. So truly, as you drive down Field Terrace, you will really not be able to see into the home or into the property in general. All perimeter evergreen trees are minimum of 10 foot in height. So really quite substantial day one installed height. Ms. Nolan did identify, we potentially should appreciate some additional planting in the southwest corner, which of course is no problem, but otherwise, truly, really nice banding around the entire property. The next page just illustrates some of that plant material for those that are not landscape architects. And we also asterisk on our planting plan, what are the native plants, again, just to kind of make it very clear. But you can just get a little sense of the color, the spring color. There's fall foliage, lots of evergreen, reestablishment of oak trees, some river birch. Really just a nice pile of plant material. The next page tries to looks at the lighting. So we're very familiar with the Irvington lighting compliance requirements, dark sky initiative. We of course encourage that, appreciate that, and design to that. So when the lighting schedule has notes, path light, spotlights, etc., step lighting, obviously for safety. And then the next page further elaborates on the village code, the actual fixture itself, shrouding on any spotlights, all path lighting, down lighting, step lighting, down lighting. So we know the village takes that very seriously, as do we. And page 7 is the pool closure fencing details. Again, we may have added 1 or 2 pages more than typical, but we just want to be very clear that the fencing will be the 5-foot minimum compliance. Will come off both sides of the house as indicated. In the top here, the metal aluminum estate fencing, and then down the side across the back and up south would be in the 5-foot high chain link. Of course, self-closing, self-latching gates, all New York State code compliant. Finally, just some details, planting specifications and things we want to be sure that the installers are following for the best possible plant success and thriving throughout the project. Sorry for racing through that. Hope that was clear, and happy to answer any questions you may have.
David, anything else to present?
I think, Mr. Chairman, with that would be our initial affirmative presentation. We know you obviously have some questions and comments, so we'll respond in kind, but we'll yield the floor back.
We're going to do them one at a time. Don't want to bounce from topic to topic. We'll try to put one topic to bed and then move on to the next. All right, we sort of covered half the drainage. In addition to the letter from the Halleck's, there was an email from a RAM 32 Osceola, concerned about driveway drainage running to the north. From the plans, it appears you have drains in the driveway. Could you elaborate on that?
Sure.
Or any runoff of the driveway heading in the wrong direction?
Right. Alan Pilch again speaking. Thank you. It's shown on the drawing, if you want me to share it, but drawing C102. There are drains within the driveway itself to take runoff from the driveway, and also say there's construction of a small retaining wall to the west of the driveway on the right-hand side, if you will, as you're driving in, and that too would act as a block to prevent runoff from going onto the neighbor's property, where they were concerned about the new driveway where it enters from Field Terrace. So I think that is addressed, and we're cognizant of it. We'll make sure that it is addressed.
Now, having some bad experience with the street drainage entering property, what are you doing to keep the water on Field Terrace in Field Terrace instead of running down your driveway?
That's something I guess we'll address. We'll take a look at it and see. I mean, the runoff from Field Terrace Avenue, where it drains to the north, if you will. We'll take a look at that, right. And we'll arrange the driveway to make sure that that additional runoff doesn't have a new route to take, that it continues on Field Terrace Avenue to the existing catch basin, which is that's where Field Terrace meets Osceola. What is it?
Osceola.
Osceola. I have to remember how to pronounce it.
Yeah, no problem. Alan, you certainly are not, you're not designing this in any way to take on drainage from Field Terrace. You're not looking for water from Field Terrace to enter your driveway, correct?
Correct. I'll make sure that.
Got it. Understood. Mr. Chairman, we'll come back to you and confirm that, but that is certainly our understanding, is that we're not accepting drainage from Field Terrace.
I would hope not, and that's why I asked, because sometimes it's overlooked.
No, that's a good point. I appreciate that.
Before I move on to the next topic, just stick to drainage. Anybody have questions on drainage on the board?
No drainage.
No drainage questions.
I have a drainage question about the one that's raised by the house.
Okay, go ahead.
So David, you mentioned that you have an agreement to allow the fence for 2 years.
Correct.
With whom?
The Halleck's.
Were they the ones who installed the fence?
Casey, do we know who actually installed the fence, or did their predecessor install the fence?
That I am not sure of. I can take another look at the agreement.
So was that Michael that asked that question?
It was.
So Michael, I'm not certain whether, and Ms. Halleck can respond. She's probably watching and could probably chime in. The predecessor, yeah, it looks like the predecessor installed the fence. So my understanding is that fence was there. The Hallecks bought the property with the fence there, as I think they will confirm. Our clients obviously learned of the encroachment when they ran title and had a survey prepared and arrived at a neighborly agreement with the Hallecks to allow that fence to remain. And that is what I responded to earlier.
So the berm and swale are on, let's say, closer to the Halleck side of the fence?
They're on the Sahara property on the Halleck side of the fence. Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Do we know who created the berm and the swale?
Michael, you're the government. You tell me.
Well, yeah, but you're the property owner who allowed the encroachment. So
No, we didn't allow the encroachment. We bought the property with the encroachment there. So we didn't allow the encroachment. And with all due respect, the minute we learned of the encroachment, we identified it to the neighbor, hence achieving this understanding.
is it believed, and maybe Alan, since he walked it, he might be able to tell, is it believed that it's naturally made or that it was man-made?
It definitely looks man-made, just from the way there's the swale looks created, and definitely there's a berm on, if you're walking down the swale, there's definitely a created berm on the left-hand side of the swale.
And that too is on the Halleck side of the fence?
Yes, all of that's on the Halleck side of the fence, on the Sahara property, but on the Halleck side of the fence.
Okay. I don't have any further questions.
Thank you.
No. Thank you. We're going to move on to the pool. There are no elevations for the pool, at least I couldn't find them, and we'd like to see elevations for the pool. It appears in talking to Doug Hahn that the downhill side of the pool might be 10 feet in the air.
No, 5 feet.
5 feet?
Yeah,
All right.
5.
Well, it's still up in the air.
Yeah, it's like roughly 5 feet.
I remember you saying 5 feet.
Anyway, we'd like to see
207.
elevations of how the pool looks and the other thing is, if it's an infinity pool, it's 5 feet up in the air. Does it ruin the infinity aspect if to prevent somebody from falling off in 5 feet?
I think there's a slope on the side of, what is it, 103? I don't remember. There's a slope. The hill slopes down from there.
Ed?
I think we should, a couple things we're gonna need is cross sections through the pool, cross section through the garage. We'll get to all that. I'm gonna suggest later on,
Yeah.
for ease, a meeting next week. We'll have a phone conversation this week and then bring some documents and sit down next week and confirm the coverage, the height, and the pool.
Yeah, and
That'd be
some
great.
Details on the pool drainage, where it might go, if you have to empty the pool. Pool equipment, is it a filtration system with a discharge, or is it self-contained equipment? You're going to use chlorine or salt water? The details may be there, but I don't get paid enough money to read all those details.
That's fine. So if I heard Ed in the background, if Ed is suggesting a staff level meeting or discussion with some of our design team on the pool elevation, the details the chair just identified, as well as some of the technical comments that Doug raised about the garage and measuring elevations of height, it's a great idea. We would like to do that. We will arrange that with Ed and Doug offline. And Mr. Chairman, we will come back and hopefully be able to tell you in writing that we've answered Doug's questions. We fully understand the obligation to comply with all the New York State code issues he raised that Greg at least alluded to. And we'll come back to you on your question about the infinity pool in elevation.
And also read our code, because drainage of a pool needs to be water somehow. You'll see it in our pool code.
Understood. Thanks, Ed.
Any comment from the board on the pool?
No pool questions. Yeah.
Pool? All right, the height of the building on the downhill side. The height is measured from the original elevation, not man-made elevation. Ed, did you check that height? Is there a height situation?
So with the height, Caesar, we have many issues. They're using an exception, but they have a document that they entitled to the exception. So we need to check that number. That's why we need really a staff meeting. Now that we have a plan, in our brief conversation, we talked about this, but we never had this plan in front of us. It was a generic conversation previously. So seeing the plan, questioning where they came up with the use of the average grade without providing evidence that the building envelope was 15% or greater on average. It's hard to see even if they can use that. And then I'm in no condition because it's only 40 feet high. So we'd like to get that. I'm going to ask them offline for the elevation drawings, put the existing grades on them as well, so we can check all that stuff. So it's the devil in the details, but the garage roof has to be as if the building was never there. So we have to demonstrate that to us. David, as we had, and Dearman, some of the parapet walls were counted as coverage.
And we'll get,
Jim probably get to that too. It's all, so the devil's in all these details. So we'll go through your list, and then I think we'll just sit with them and just.
okay.
I think they just need more detail.
Yeah. Any more questions on height? No. All right. I'm concerned of how it might look from the street. It appears that when you look at it from the street that you're almost looking at the roof, but you have a lot of plantings. So you had some very nice renderings. If you could do a rendering of what it looks like from the street, including the plantings, rendering of the building and the plantings all one, so we could see and the public can see.
Understood.
Driving out. What are you going to look at?
We will provide that. I foreshadow by saying, I wish I could tell you that this, what I think is going to be a really unique and magnificent home would be visible and people would be able to enjoy and see it. I have a feeling it's going to be so landscaped and based upon topography, they will not see it. But the answer to the question will be revealed in an illustrative drawing. We will provide that.
And there's one section, the northernmost section, I think it's the upper floor. It's sort of windowless, an expansive wall that's windowless. But you're not, if the rendering is such that you can't see it anyway, it doesn't matter. So we'll look forward to the rendering on.
You'll see it on the rendering. Yes.
The sewer. You mentioned you're going to connect into a 4-inch sewer. If that's a public sewer, it needs to be 8 inches. Ed, you want to get some elaboration on that?
David, during the site capacity, we mentioned having it investigated to make sure that the noise connected into that. Because it's 4 inches. It's not a public sewer, but someone else is tied into it. We've done some exploratory as well. We did find that the area we thought was flooding was a separate spur, but we believe that the house to the north's carriage house should be investigated to make sure it's not tied into it.
Okay, so
if you could just prove to, not prove to us, demonstrate, we don't want that to be the holdup of the job, but we don't want that to be approved without analyzing it, investigating it.
that's fine.
So,
You've indicated this from the outset, so Alan and I know we have to address this. All I can say is what I know, and I know that at the time the village subdivided the property and created the building lot upon which the Saharas are now proposing this home, the village approved a plat that showed a sewer line going out to service this lot, crossing the Halleck property. We have a written easement allowing for that. So we thought it was a permissible connection point. If not, and it has to be replaced, Alan will look at that. So allow us to complete our investigation. We do have a sewer easement, and I would have thought that at the time the village approved the subdivision that it knew who was connected into that pipe and what the pipe size was. But I'll defer to others.
I can't be public. But more importantly, if you want to just include language in the approval that gives us options if it becomes a problem. I'm not trying to do all the work up front. I'm just trying to make sure that going forward, if it becomes a problem, that you have the right to put another orange line next to it. That is what I'm looking for, is to make sure that we have backup in case it's a problem.
Got it. Alan,
Or,
I mean,
or go through investigation early, which I don't want to do.
Alan, make sure you understand, or you'll deal with this offline with Ed, but this, I need to defer to you on making sure, A, the Saharas have a pipe that works and that you believe works and meets code, and B, if I heard Ed just now, I appreciate his comment, is providing for a future kind of fail-safe replacement if we needed to do that. My phrase, not his.
The operative word here is public. If it's more than one person is used, it's a public sewer, which needs to be 8-inch.
Correct. And we're not convinced. We have no, at the moment, Mr. Chairman, we have no reason to believe it is a public line and anybody else is connected. I don't believe Halleck, whose property this crosses, goes in there. But somebody mentioned a carriage house. So I'll have to defer to Alan to figure out whether he needs to scope it or do something else to figure out where this pipe is.
And if it winds up to be a 4-inch service line, I'm sure there needs to be a clean out. In my recollection, Ed, correct me, does the county have a code about how long a service connection can be?
We'll get into that in the first meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any sewer questions from the board?
No.
No. Okay, I'm going to get back to the trees. I'm sure you spoke to her, Susan Nolan. One of the things, and it's probably covered, but it needs to be demonstrated that it's covered. To identify the trees that are coming down, if they're regulated village trees, we want to be able to match it up to replacements. So, because there's a requirement in code, if you take a regulated tree down, you need to replace it. And we just want to make sure, I'm sure it's going to be fine, because your planting plan looked very nice from my point of view, just looking at the cursory presentation. But Suzanne would like to verify that the numbers match up of what's regulated and what's being replanted. And the other thing is, when if you show the utilities and the drainage system, we want to make sure that any trees, the roots are protected, that the utilities are not within the drip line or the roots of existing trees, or even the planted trees. I'm sure you can work that out with Susan Nolan. Anything on trees? Okay, any question? I'm sorry. Any question? Question on the trees?
We'll address that in our plans, no problem.
Okay, any questions from the board on trees? Okay, now now we're going to the garages. There's several issues on the garages. There's coverage issues, the parapet. I don't know what the parapet looks like. The parapet is coverage. 3-car garage with a carport that, when does an arrow become a spear? When does a carport become a garage? That's another question. There's a retaining wall, that the parapet becomes a retaining wall, a wall that counts as coverage. These are very complicated, and I'm sure there's a lot of discussion that is going to take place on this. And I'm going to let Ed.
Yeah, we'll do that offline. That's kind of the details and the cross sections of how the garage transitions into a yard is going to be important, just like on Dearman, David.
Understood.
There's 2 different details on the plan, but I think there's just because they're preliminary. We'll iron all that out before we.
That's fine. Our goal, Mr. Chair, just one brief statement. Our goal is to try to achieve a zoning compliant design. We think we have it, but we understand it's complex. If not, we'll address it as we best determine how to proceed. Sorry, Mary Ann, for interrupting.
1 second, man. And that's why I think you're an inventive guy, because you got this garage situation laid out to meet code. And that's why I have great confidence you're going to solve the water problem. If you can come up with this carport scenario. Marianne.
Well, I do not disagree that the garage situation meets code. I don't know why it's not a 4-car garage. I mean, it looks like a 4-car garage, but you call it, and 4-car garages are not permitted in the district without a variance. So if you have 3-car garage and a carport right next to it and virtually attached, somebody explain to me why that's not a 4-car garage. I mean, you guys.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the question, Marianne. Again, I think that's something, to David's point, that we're willing to look at that as a conversation piece to get adjusted to conform to the 3-car, to make the board very comfortable with that solution.
Marianne, we'll talk offline with you and Ed. I don't know. I don't think the question's rhetorical, but I don't want to go too far with it. A garage, in my opinion, is an enclosure with 4 sides, and door closes and you keep goods in there, and it's safeguarded. A carport is a carport. It is a different creature from a garage. Whether or not you can have a carport next to a 3-car garage under the Irvington Code is something we should talk about. But it's a carport, not a garage, because it's not a garage bay because there's no door. And that's, but again, we're not looking to be difficult. We really are not. The chairman's right. Our design team and all of us are trying to be creative and come up with a creative design and creative answers. But we're going to work through this because the Saharas do not want to be difficult, but they do want to have an incredible home, and that's what we're all working to achieve.
Okay, and this is related to that. And I was going to ask you, when your landscape plan was up, what's on top of that? What's on top of this underground garage?
So as we explained when we met with Ed, it is.
No, explain to the board, yeah.
It is, well, again, we explained, and we're happy to explain it now to the full board. I don't know what Ed briefed on and what Ed did not brief on. And if we need to, JP or Alan, somebody can share. The area on top of the garage is a lawn or grass area that can be used functionally as all of the ground around it, which is essentially the definition. I don't have the definition in the code in front of me, but it can be used functionally, much like what we had in Nakum, as the ground around it. It will be a lawn area. It is a green grass area. And we talked to Ed about this issue, both as to drainage and coverage, as well as to whether or not it satisfied that definition. JP, if I've misstated something on that, please correct me.
No, that was what we discussed.
David, it was a conversation with no plan in front of us.
That's fine. So you now have plans, and we want you and Doug and Marianne to dig into this. But we've essentially, what we've tried to do, and I don't want to say we, because I appreciate all the creativity the chair's giving attribution to me. The Up Studio took a look at the real unique topography on this property and tried to make use of that topography, and I'll use the word extend portions of it so that the structure could actually be effectively below grade, below grass, and could have lawn area above it in a really aesthetically pleasing and creative way. Again, just like we talked about on Nakum, we obviously need to make sure that there is adequate fencing so that nobody comes across and falls over. And I'll defer to Ed, Doug, and JP to make sure that all the safety mechanisms are in place. But that's the concept, Marianne.
From my point of view, without looking at the code, Marianne's doing that, and Ed, carport to me is open on all 4 sides. And this does not appear to me as a layman to be a carport. Just because you don't have a door on it. Why don't you have 4 carports? Take the doors off the other ones. I mean, there's no difference other than the door.
Understood.
If it
I'm not going to
flies
argue the
off the duck,
point.
It's a duck.
Most carports have two sides open. I'll agree with you on that, Caesar. So let us take a look at it again. If it doesn't meet code, then we will address it.
Well, the issue, as you well know, if it's not a carport, it's coverage, which would change the coverage situation for the site. So it is critical.
Understood.
Diane, you got any more on this?
No.
Ed, Doug? Anybody on the board?
Yep.
Mike?
No, only to express that I agree with you about it being part of the garage.
Kevin?
I have a question, if you can hear me. I mean, related to the carport, I mean, it strikes me that it might serve some other purpose to bridge what's happening there. I mean, if we're trying to integrate this garage into the land is what it is, the lengths of the garage are what they are, and it might make sense for it to do that. And to me, it doesn't make the definition of what's garage and carport, I mean, it's not very significant to me. It's more the context within which the project sits, but I guess we'll see as we flesh out details. I mean, I guess it's more a comment, and there's a little question in there too, because I don't really know the thinking behind it, but that's just a thought.
Well, all of these professionals have not given an engineering reason for that space other than as a
There hasn't been an
carport, so
opportunity yet. So I'm just saying there's an
No,
openness.
Kevin, I really appreciate the comment, and I need to defer here to either JP or JD to respond. My understanding is that I think Kevin understands, or is at least reminding me of a three-dimensional issue that I think is what was behind the creation of that area. In order to extend the grade and get to the three-car garage, there was this area that ultimately ended up becoming, JP, help me here, effectively became an area that one could park a car and utilize as a carport, but not as covered, fully enclosed garage space. But I didn't design it, you did.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think in theory that's what's happening, right? So the grade of the slope is coming down. It's being extended to cover the garage area. And there's a residual space that's created between the slope of the land and the actual physical three-car garage. And that area is an open area that we thought serviced very well as a carport. And again, I think to David's point, offline, we can kind of dig in here and kind of understand, the board's concerns and the village engineer's concerns and figure out a solution that addresses that.
Like I said, it looks like a duck, flies like a duck. I mean, four-car garages are prohibited, and by taking the door off, it's not prohibited. I mean, you're gonna have to convince, at least me, I don't know about the rest of the boards, that this is really what it is.
Understood. And
it's not a carport. If it's not a carport, you have a coverage problem. So
we got it. And just to stay with your animal metaphors, this is the tip of the tail behind the dog, and I don't want the tail wagging the dog. So we hear you on the carport. Next issue.
Well, I don't have any more. So
okay.
I do have a comment that the retaining wall coming down from Field Terrace, it looks like it's going to be about 10 feet high on the Field Terrace side. We okay with that?
It was raised in Doug's memo. We know we have to address it. Greg, I don't know if you're prepared to, you or JP are prepared to address that tonight, but we read the comment in Doug's memo about concern about that retaining wall's height. We will deal with that. We believe it's compliant. Greg, I don't want to put you on the spot because the memo is still hot off the press. So we'll come back to the board on that.
Doug, what happens to the water that comes off, unless it's curved? If there's water coming off Field Terrace and it gets behind that retaining wall, what happens?
Well, they have weed bowls and everything to deal with it, and they're gonna collect it in their drainage for all the impervious. The 6.5 wall also is it was kind of covered by the bold line going around. Is that gonna be 6.5 feet, or I couldn't tell?
Just do it.
We could do it. It's fine.
There was a question in there. Want to repeat it, Doug? Maybe they didn't get it.
Do it off.
We could do it offline.
Okay. All right, that's another engineering issue offline. All right, now, overall project, any question on anything from the board?
No question.
I'm all set.
No questions.
Sarah, anything from the public?
Yes, there's somebody raising their hand to speak, and there were several comments in the chat. I'll start with the comments in the chat. I believe it might have been addressed, but.
David, can you step, hold on, can you hear Sarah? She's gonna read.
Yeah,
from
we
the
can hear
chat.
Sarah, and just, just helping Sarah and preempting, we attempted to address the chat comments. We saw them coming in. I've got them on our screen about the fence and the pool and the height of the pool. And so I think we addressed the chat comments. But again, Sarah, if you think there's something there that we did not address, go right ahead and fire away.
I need to hear him.
She's gonna read each one.
I'm just gonna read each one just to have it in the record. For 10 minutes. Several of the comments were from Aaron Rubinson, and his comments were, can you please comment on the drainage issues from the steep driveway entrance? His other comment was, can you elaborate on the chain link fence along the perimeter? Specifically, how will that border on the south side of the property? I am at 32 Osceola and have been replacing chain link fences with nice materials. And his last comment was, will a 5-foot infinity pool create constant noise for neighbors? And the other comment was from Claire Halleck, and I believe you read it, but her comment was the predecessor installed the fence. And Claire has her hand raised to speak.
Before we go to
cover all.
actually, there's one. I appreciate Sarah reminding us. So, and I don't know if anybody on our team can address this right now, but JP or Greg, do we have plans to deal with the chain link fence, not the Halleck portion of the fence that encroaches, the balance of the chain link fence? Are we leaving it, replacing it, changing it? What I gather that there's that the Rubinsons are concerned about that portion of our fence that's proximate to 32 Osceola. Do we have a plan with that portion of fence?
Before he answers that, my question relating, I believe you said there's a fence around the perimeter of the property, and there's plantings around the perimeter of the property. Is there any plantings in front of the fence so that people don't look at the fence, they look at your plantings, and the fence is hidden by plantings?
Greg?
So the chain link fence, obviously, first and foremost, there needs to be safety and security with the pool environment. So the plan, I believe, is to obviously stake the property line for clarity in terms of where the property line is. If there's existing fence in good condition, I would assume it can remain. Otherwise, it would be new chain link fencing with the code compliant 5-foot height. Then within the Sahara property, the entire chain link fence will be wrapped with evergreen plant material that's green throughout the entire winter and immediately taller than the fence when installed. So there'll be a lot of landscaping that will really render that fence, I believe, a non-issue, visually due to all the planting, proposed planting.
But let's stake it out. Let's make sure we know exactly where that fence is and whose fence it is in all these sections so that we can respond to the Rubinsons. And Mr. Chairman, the other question that they asked that I don't think we addressed was, will this pool create constant noise? We'll respond to the pool filter equipment and where that is located and how that's treated. And I'm sure that the pool and pool filter equipment and the operation of the property will all comply with the Village of Irvington's noise ordinance. And the creation of this pool will certainly not generate constant noise for anyone.
I think that that was directed more about the water falling over the side than it was necessarily the pool equipment, because they mentioned the infinity pool with the water coming over the edge, which is different than just filters. I don't know if it makes a noise, but I think that was probably the concern.
I got it. Well, with 2 acres of property, if there's water coming off the side of the pool and the neighbors can hear it, I'll be amazed. But even, I don't want to take the bait on that one because, even if there was water coming over the side of the pool, I'm not quite sure that gives rise to a nuisance or a noise violation because I'll turn my sprinklers on in my backyard and they probably make more noise. So again, I'll bypass that. This property will comply with all requisite common law and statutory noise requirements.
Yeah, just trying to clarify what I think the commenter intended.
Yeah, I'm interested in the exterior fence around the property line, how visible it will be. I mean, you all know that looking at a chain link fence, from a neighbor looking at a chain link fence is not the best sight in the world. So please address it the next time. Sarah?
I'm gonna allow Claire to.
I didn't hear you, sir.
Claire.
I'm gonna let Claire.
Okay.
The ability to speak.
Hi, it's, oh, here I am. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I just lost the visual. So first of all, I just want to say thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. I really appreciate it. And I want to say first that my husband and I are looking forward to welcoming the Saharas into the neighborhood. And so we just look at this as an opportunity to rectify a situation that's been plaguing us for the 16 years since we've owned the house. We did not build it initially. The previous owners, well, actually 2 owners ago, the Allens built it, and we are on the north side of the property. And our main concern is it's not, just to clarify, it's not all a pre-existing condition. There is a pipe issue in terms of drainage from the property and fill terrace above us that we need to address. And I would imagine the Saharas would like to also have addressed because there's water just flooding down. But because of the shape of the Sahara's property and the edge of the property on the northern edge of our property, there is a significant berm, and over time, I guess this water runoff has created, if you will, a kind of almost a little river. And it wasn't just Ida. Ida was just the straw that broke the camel's back. We had flooding repeatedly that filled up our window well in our basement, and over the years, which I didn't appreciate, sadly, was that that window rotted. And so Ida, with the force of water there, blew out that window actually and flooded our 2,000 square foot basement with 5 inches of water and mud. Over the years, we have tried to divert that water into the property line. It's actually on the Sahara's property. The berm is on their property, and that's what's bringing the water down into our property. And we've tried to divert that water stream along the property edge between the 2 homes. And I don't know whether that's something that we're going to be able to continue to do with the Saharas, whether they're going to want that. It goes, as I see it, it goes right through all their what seem to be very attractive new plantings. And then so there's water coming off of Field Terrace. There's water just everywhere because we're at both homes, their home, their future home, and our home are at the bottom of a very steep hill. And there's also this water pipe. There's no curbs right now on Field Terrace above the Sahara's home. So the Castellanos property, which is above us, that curb kind of comes to an end. It's really not a proper curb. It's just a lump of a very shallow lump of tar, I guess, from the edge of the road. So there's a lot of water that I suspect goes over that and then comes down the hill. And I'm not an expert by any means in terms of understanding where the water comes from, but I do fear that the building of that, the retaining wall and that underground garage was going to divert more water towards our property, and also the elimination of some of the trees and ground cover, which has been growing there for, gosh, I don't even know, years and years and years, 30 plus years. As that is cleaned up, which I'm sure they're going to do, and it'll probably be a lot more attractive. But I worry that that's going to increase the water problem that we have. So my husband and I are really just looking at this as an opportunity, and that we're hopeful that we could work together with our neighbors as they're going through this and getting their planning approval to have to be able to rectify this situation, because it's been costly and troublesome for us for many years. So thank you for your time. Really appreciate it. And thank you to Mr. Steinmetz and to the Sahara team in advance for helping us with this.
Don't go away, we have a question.
Karen, do you know who created the berm?
I don't. The original, as Mr. Steinmetz has indicated, the original property was 4 acres, all of which was owned by Herb Allen. His daughter, I believe it was his daughter, is the one who built our house. So this was back that was the original owner. Then there's somebody who lived, was here in between. And so it existed when we moved in. So I don't know the answer to that question.
And this is Mark Halleck, Claire's husband. One issue about the fence is the property line runs right along some very mature trees. So if the fence were to be moved to that line, a number of trees, 60, 70-year-old trees would have to come down.
But, or we could reach agreement with them, I'm sure I hope to change the fence, because we did reach, as Mr. Steinmetz indicated, we reached an accommodation with them, which we were both very, I think, satisfied with. But that's just something that we'd like to work with them to make sure that the trees stay in place. But that's probably down the road, because as we mentioned, when they purchased the property, the people who owned the property before us put up a fence which was not in the correct spot based on the landlines. And we've agreed with them that we will, if they want to move it, they can do so at the end of, basically it was a 2-year agreement. So, but our main issue right now is really this water issue, which has just been constant.
Claire and Mark, thank you for identifying the issue about those trees, because in the conversations that Claire and I had, I didn't know about that. Alan and Greg didn't mention that, so they may be aware of it. But Mark, thanks for that, because I don't think the Saharas want to take down 60-year-old mature trees that are protecting their property and yours visually. So 100% we will take a look at that very carefully, and I will make sure that when we come back, Greg can answer for the board what trees are staying, what trees might need to come out, if any, and whether the fence gets relocated. I now want to understand that a little bit more clearly. So thank you for explaining that to all of us.
And just again, thanks to everybody tonight. I know it's late, but I appreciate the spirit that the chair and the board were addressing some of these things, because there's a lot of changes going on, and what we don't know is what's the impact on the flow of water due to retaining walls, due to underground garages and things like that. And my concern is that will funnel water south, which is to the north end of our property, and exacerbate the flow of water that we get during storms because of the design. So as much as we can anticipate that and address it in the design, we would appreciate it.
Yes, 2 things, and you brought to mind more on the fence. In addition to moving that fence, one of the gentlemen indicated that they'd be replacing chain link fence along the property line in other areas. So the possibility of disturbing existing roots by putting in the fence posts needs to be explored on the perimeter. So keep that in mind wherever you're going to install a new fence. And to address your concern, I'm sure you're listening, and we went through extensive explanation that the proposed, the applicant, what he has proposed, because of the way it's proposed, on paper, the water would not be adding to the existing problem. It's not flowing into the channel that exists. That's that the existing water is not going to be increased by the addition of the new home, the new fill on the back of the south end of the building, at least on paper. And the village engineer also on paper agrees with that, but he suggested a field visit, which Mr. Steinmetz agreed that it would be a good idea because it is a critical situation regarding your property, Mr. Howard. And
I would love
just
to
had a
be,
thought.
that would be great. I'd love to be a part of that meeting if we could.
If you could, that it couldn't be arranged, I'm sure, I don't know.
Thank you.
But another thought in terms of the field terrace, I know it's a village road, but she mentioned that it's not curbed. And the flow of the field terrace, we talked about it getting behind the 10-foot wall. Is there any chance of curbing the field terrace and keeping the water off the property? I don't know if it's a village issue or your issue. And where would it go if it was curbed, other than onto your client's property?
I don't know if any of us are ready to answer that tonight. So we've heard that question a few different ways, a few different times tonight. So let us look very carefully at that and we'll come back.
Alan?
One of the things we asked for is for tributary areas, so that may shed some light on what's happening over there.
Okay.
Alan, when you walked the area, did you see the pipe from the Castellano property that Ms. Halleck was talking about?
It's actually, I think it's on the retaining wall off of the back of the property. It wasn't easy to spot, I'll just say that, but I know essentially where it is.
So you know where the water actually flowed from the Castellano property through that pipe onto the Sahara's property?
Right, and then from that point, it continues on to the Halleck's property, or to the swale that diverts it through the, I'll just say, into the swale that Ms. Halleck was talking about.
So, David, I don't know if you have, I don't know if Alan did, do you have any understanding as to the right by which the Castellanos did that, had their water flow through that pipe onto what was then probably, the Allen property? I mean, it was, by what right did they?
Michael, that was why I was, it was half in jest, but exactly why I made the comment to you, 35 minutes ago about, I would love the village of Irvington to tell me, because my clients didn't own the property. The reason Alan could barely see it is it's kind of, obviously it's been there a while. It was done obviously in a fashion to divert water from A's property onto B's property, which may ultimately find its way onto C's property. I don't think any government authority authorized it. I know my client or my client's predecessor didn't authorize it because there's no drainage easement allowing A to drain A's water onto B. So there's an issue there. I mean, there's no question about it, as best I can tell. But I'm unaware, to answer your question directly, Michael, I'm unaware of any governmental permit or other documentation that allowed A to do what A appears to have done.
Thank you.
All right, I used to work for somebody who didn't believe problems existed. He always said, that's not a problem, it's an opportunity. So it's an opportunity to use your inventiveness.
The theme of tonight for Caesar is just very optimistic will be the word, very optimistic and efficient also.
Anything else over there? I want to thank the Hallecks for their contribution, and it's going to be looked at. I can't promise us a solution, but it's certainly within our purview to at least ask that it get addressed.
Thank you.
Sarah?
Nobody else is raising their hand to speak, and there are no additional comments in the chat.
Anybody, including Ed and Mary Ann, anything? Board? No. Nope. Okay, we'll see you next time.
Sounds good. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
And if you want to convince us
Thank
that
you.
carport is not a garage, you got to wear a tie.
We'll see next month.
All right, thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
All right, the meeting of whatever today's date is, June 1st is closed, and we'll be meeting next July.